And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to take a look at a word game. That word game is Word Winder. Now this is a game that has two different modes. One is a mode where you're trying to get across the board by spelling words, moving from left to right or top to bottom, by making words that connect to one another and get all the way across the board with your pieces. Whereas the other one is kind of a race. Each player is trying to go from top to bottom faster than the other player by taking turns and of course getting their job done by spelling and including words from one word to the next. So, real quick, why don't we take a look at what you get inside of this box and how the game plays. I'm going to show you a two-player game, but it will play up to 6 if you decide to play in teams. We'll see what the components are like and how it plays, and then I'll come back here at the end and I'll give you my opinion of it. So here you can see Word Winder set up for a 3-player game of the variant called Sidewinder. Now there are 2 variants in this game. This one you're trying to go from one side of the board to the other by spelling out words. So you can either go left to right, right to left, or up to down, top to bottom, whatever you want to do. And you're going to try and go across before the other opponents can get there, but of course you're going to be trying to block your opponents in order to stop them from beating you as well. The other variant is more of a race. There's columns, so you just divide these modular tiles up into columns instead, and you try and go from the top to the bottom faster than the other player. Or, alternatively, block them off on their path from the top to the bottom and prevent them from getting there and thus win the game. So, why don't we take a look at how this one works real quick. In this variant, you're allowed to start anywhere on the board, and as I said, you're trying to go from one side to the other, be it left to right or top to bottom. So maybe one player here takes their first turn, and they look for a word out on the board. Now these words can be, as long as the letters are next to each other, either diagonal or orthogonally adjacent, you can use them in the word. So for example, this first player is going to look around, they're going to see what they can find. And maybe they look down here and they find the word singer. So they go S-I-N-G-E-R, singer. So you can see here, I'm allowed to go orthogonally adjacent, and then N is diagonal to G, then back diagonally to E-R. I've got singer. So I've made basically all the way across this tile. Maybe I'm trying to go left to right because I didn't make much progress top to bottom. And then the next player decides to take their turn. So they look around for a little while, and they find a word up here. They find gaping, G-A-P-I-N-G. So it looks like they're going to try to work from top to bottom, but that may not work out for them. Particularly because the blue player takes their turn and they look around and they go, well, I don't like the red player or the pink player, and I think they're going to make too much progress in this area over here. It looks too good. So this player looks and they find the word nouns. So they have N-O-U-N-S. Now this has kind of stopped the pink player a little bit from going top to bottom, because now they're going to have to go around the blue player in order to accomplish that. Now if this letter were open here, they could actually go diagonally through this area. So you actually have to completely block off all aspects of them moving through there, because a diagonal will still let them through. So now that they've done this, this player could start to go this direction, go around blue, but then they're going to have to deal with yellow trying to go across this way, and of course you're going to try and find a way to navigate from one side of the board to the other faster than your opponents. Now as I said, for the race game, it's a little bit different. Instead of having this divided into a square, you would have a longer column of lines, and you would have to start at the top of the column and move your way down. And basically, you have to always include one line from this first row of words here in your first word, and you'll work your way down, trying to beat your other opponents. In this game, you are allowed to include letters from your previous words. So, for example, if it's yellow's turn again, they can go ahead and use this S in their future words. So, for example, they could use sire, S-I-R-E. And that would allow them to continue on with their previous word and continue across the board left to right. Anyhow, the player who is best able to find words and utilize them in order to build their path across the board is going to be the winner. Well, there you have it. That is Word Winder. Now, again, I showed you mostly the Sidewinder variant, but of course the race variant plays much the same way. However, there are a couple of rules differences. In the Sidewinder variant, you're allowed to play your word anywhere on the board at any time. So you can play a word over here and then a word over here and decide to connect them later. Whereas with the Race Winder variant, where you're moving from top to bottom and you have to start at the top, you have to have at least one letter from your first word at the first row of the game, and each of your subsequent words must touch your previous word. So you can either use a word in the previous, or a letter in the previous word. For example, if you have an S at the end of something and you want to spell snake off of that, you can use the S from your previous word to spell snake. Or if there's a letter next to that S in snake, you can use, for example, an N that's next to the S to continue your word, but they must be touching. So each word must play off of the previous one in some way, shape, or form, be it actually continuing from a letter or just being next to it directly. So there's a little bit of difference. Now, I really do enjoy this game. I like word games, and I think the moving player board, the different pieces that you can use to make the player board are going to keep it a little more fresh. If only because if you kind of know the board each time, it's going to be easier to pick words out, but being able to flip them over, and they are two-sided, and rearrange them is going to make it harder to memorize the board. In addition, this is really a game that I would suggest playing with a timer. If you just sit there and stare at the board forever, it's going to get boring and dull. But if you limit each player to, well, we do 30 seconds to look for a word, and of course you can look on your opponent's turn, but if you limit them in the amount of time, it's going to be a lot more of a race. And if you don't find a word in your 30 seconds, well, you don't play a word. But either way, I really enjoyed the game. It's a great word game that I would suggest checking out. That is Wordwinder.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.